Welcome back for everyone who's already a subscriber to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. Excited to have back on the show. He's a regular guest of the show, an undefeated MMA fighter out of Pittsburgh who has the fantastic fight nickname of Steel City. Representing Pittsburgh is Steel City Lucas Seibert. Steel City Lucas, welcome back to the show.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Always great having you on the show. And for people that aren't aware, you're on the show to talk about the fact that you headlined and won the main event for 247 Fighting Championships Brawl in the Burgh 24. That was on October 26th. And you really put on a clinic, ended up getting the TKO in the third round. We'll walk through that. But how's it been about the week or so since that fight? How have you been doing? How have you been feeling? And then we'll break it down.
Good, man. Any of the any fight, you're gonna have little injuries going in and stuff, and just taking care of them. I went into that fight not 100% healthy, but I'm getting back into the swing of stuff, and just being smart about it. Really excited to get a lot better. Take a little bit of a gap and competing and get better.
So you've already got a plan going forward. One of the things I really like about having you on the show is you're very thoughtful. Not only are you undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro, got tons of skills and ability. Last time you're on the show, which was great, I encourage people to check it out. You talked about your fight name change, but also your commitment to Stout Pittsburgh and your gym, and saying that you expect to stay in Pittsburgh representing Stout Pittsburgh. Even, when you get to the UFC, you want to make Pittsburgh a place where people come to train. And that's a testament to your dedication, but also the team you have around yourself and the legendary coaches, Mike Wilkins and Will Morrell and others and of course, Warren Stout at Stout Pittsburgh. So let's talk, because obviously you've got a game plan. You have a bachelor's in, if I remember right, sports psychology or something to do with that, I believe. Yep, from WVU. Yep. So I think you're showing, and people need to take note, that balancing the mental, planning for the future as well as also planning for now, and just doing a good job with all that. But let's break down the fact that let's talk about the first round. But before we do, you took on an opponent with a ton. I think it was his 12th or 13th pro MMA fight. Obviously, you knew that he's got that ability. What were your thoughts coming in to the cage? Do you ever think specifically about your opponent, and then break down the first round?
Me and Will and Mike, we game plan very well. And you get into a fight and sometimes some of the stuff isn't working, right? So we made some adjustments mid-fight, and they ended up doing really well. As far as his experience and stuff, it was evident, right? He was making decisions kept him in longer, kept him in the fight. And something that it was a really good learning experience for me. And I think it was really good for the trajectory of my career to fight somebody like that for my third fight. I think, being in there with a vet, I think of it kind of like a video game, right? You beat somebody, you kind of take their abilities.
Sure.
So that's why I fought him. You have 14 fights, right? So, I got some of that, veteran stuff in front of me, right? And it was a competitive fight for a couple rounds, and then I think I took over in the second and third, and just kind of implemented my game plan that we kind of adjusted mid-fight essentially.
Well, and those type of adjustments, I know some of that is your secret sauce, but what's it like being in the corner and having those quick conversations? People that don't know, you've got maybe 45, 50 seconds of usable time in the corner, something like that. And obviously there's some maintenance things to take care of, getting some water, getting some ice, just the basic stuff. So what's the communication like between you and Coach Mike and Coach Will? And How quickly do you guys make those adjustments? I know you're not going to say all the adjustments because that's what's going to build you for the next time, but how profitable are those conversations back and forth? Because I think some fighters don't get as much out of the corner as obviously you guys do.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I have the best coaches in the game, right? I'm gonna say it like till I'm done, right? I've been saying it, and even the 1 minute we have in between, right? Usually it's Mike's obviously my ground and grappling guy, and Will's my striking guy. So they don't talk over each other. They know when to talk because they each have their job. My job is to communicate with them, and so as soon as I get to the corner, I communicate with them first. Usually, at first, it's slowing down your breathing. Getting there. We attack like 30 seconds with a game plan, and then I'm back up and ready to go. This fight, I think we got to the corner and it was more of like a collaborative thing. Like it was like, hey, let me know when you want to get a takedown. I was like, hey, Will, should I do this? Will was saying some stuff that he wanted me to do. It was very collaborative. But sometimes it's not going to be like that. Sometimes it's going to be like, hey, you need to go out and you need to do this, right? So we work really well together, the three of us, and obviously Warren's in the corner too, and he's giving advice to Mike and Will before they run in. So, yeah, man, I got the best coaches in the game. So,
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think that obviously makes a big difference. From the first time I had you on the show, you've moved to Pittsburgh, you've made it your home base, and clearly you're an incredible representation of Pittsburgh and specifically Stout Pittsburgh. Talk about the finish, your game plan was starting to work. This is a guy that he's got a fair number of losses, but he hasn't been finished a ton. You have to work really hard to finish this guy. Very, very durable. I know you said in your post fight with me that you care about, if you can, obviously you care about getting finishes because that's what the UFC looks for, and higher level organizations care about it. Now you are 3-0 with 2 finishes, both of them very, very nice. One jumping knee. I'm sure that's going to be a highlight for a while. It's an incredible jumping knee. And then which also led to ground strikes, and now this one on the ground. So kind of talk us through the finish, and particularly the question that I think is always important, which is, were you confident that that was going to be the finish? I think you had, 2 minutes left, or was it just comfortable to stay there if you needed to for the duration of the round?
I'm going to answer like a couple things. Like one thing's really cool. I write my goals down at the beginning of the year, right? I wrote at the beginning of this year 2 to 3 fights, 2 finishes. So I had 3 fights, 2 finishes this year. I got a lot of experience, and I'm right on track. A little bit ahead of track than I thought I was going to be. So that's really cool. And just like looking back at stuff and seeing you accomplish things that you put out in the universe is a cool thing to be able to do. But as far as that finish, so Mike told me in between the second, third round, he was like, hey, you've got this dude's back twice. One of the things, so Eddie was smaller than I thought he was going to be in terms of like his height, which obviously like that can be an issue in striking, which it was. But it was also,
you head kicked over him, 2 or 3 times you head kicked over him, maybe more than that.
Yeah. And then, some of the knees and stuff like weren't landing because I was like, a bit taller. But in grappling, right, you wouldn't think it would be as big of an issue because you're on the ground. However, getting hooks in on him was very difficult, like getting my legs in. So Mike kind of word for word guided me into how to do it. And actually, they were mic'd up, like they had mics on for the fight. And Ish, the Relentless podcast, I was like recording it. So hopefully we'll get like the little document. Mike literally walks me through the finish.
Okay. Cool.
And then I take the kid. I start kind of getting the better striking, right? And I think I could have finished it there, but I wanted a finish, right? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take him down. I get his back. Did exactly what Mike said. I ask Mike what the time was. He gives me our like a little indication for what the time is, and then I postured up and finished the fight exactly how he told me to. And that I got up. As soon as I got up, I like went like that and pointed to him and Will, and just the brains behind everything. So I'm gonna give them credit as soon as I can, and got up, pointed to them, jumped on the cage, and I'm a veteran enough now. I know I only got like 5 seconds on that cage before Chip tells me to get off. I beat him to it.
You got down
Beat,
on your own. I know. You
yeah,
take the cage. You do your posing. You're celebrating, and you dismount on your own. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I don't need Chip coming over. I don't need Chip mad at me. I was like, all right. But yeah, man, it was a cool experience, and it would have been cool to get a highlight reel knockout, but sometimes it's just like not your best night at the office, and you figure it out. You get a finish however you can get it.
Well, getting the finish, like what you said, is obviously super impressive. There's times where grinding out a decision, depending on what the situation is, can be the best case scenario, depending on it. But obviously, you got to finish over a really tough guy. That's what matters. You are a fighter I love having on because you talk so much about the mental game, both from the coaches. Your coaches also have an incredible YouTube channel called, I'm going to say, Trust Your Coaches. Listen to
Listen to
your
your
coaches. Listen to
yeah
your coaches. And I love watching it because they get into a lot of the coaching side. Obviously, it's called Listen to Your Coaches, and it's a great YouTube channel. They break down sometimes specific events, specific fights. Other times they just talk general stuff. So I think like you are really winning the training game, but also the mental game. Now, given the fact that you said that you are planning on kind of developing your skills and taking a bit away, is it premature to say that that probably means you're not going to be back for 247 Brawl in the Burgh 25, the Christmas fight? Is that what you mean by that? You're going to be looking towards next year and not the close. Okay. So
yeah.
what
We're looking early 2025.
are,
We have specific opponents in mind
wow.
that we're looking at too, and yeah, I think it's just best that we wait for career development, for everything, right? I'm at the stage in my career where one, I'm really focused on being the best martial artist possible, right? And not that it was a bad performance, but there are some things that I just want to improve before I go out and I perform again. And me, Mike, and Will sat down right before we filmed the podcast for them, and it was that's what we came up with. We came up with a game plan, and when I set out a game plan, when I write things down, they happen. So I'm gonna write down my game plan for 2025, and it's all gonna happen.
That's what's so wonderful about listening to you. You're not only likable, you obviously have great cage abilities, cage awareness, and you can really become one of the things I like about doing this show is you can really become a guideline, a game plan for people that maybe will meet you, maybe know you, but maybe don't as well. And just kind of get the idea of the intentionality being important. We've talked about how Lucas Martin, the former Division II champ, is kind of following in your footsteps as well. A lot of development out of him. Clearly, the fight didn't go the way anybody would want it to do, but it's the redevelopment. Just in general, you haven't suffered a loss in the cage, and hopefully you never do, right? But the reality is, what are some things that you think is important about resiliency? Because we've talked about on this show before the mental side, the mental health side of fighting, and you were a walk on at the VU. You've shared openly that wrestling at that level was tough, and you took plenty of losses. It was a big challenge. So, what do you think's important about resiliency for you and for teammates? Obviously, we wish the best to Champ. I can't wait to have Lucas Martin back on in the future. I know he'll be back better. But talk a little about resiliency before we wrap up?
I think that's what fighting is. You know what I mean? I think being that resilient, fighting through things, and you take a loss and coming back. Like I have no doubt in my mind, Luke Martin is going to come back and be a better fighter. Um, I know who he is. Like he loves fighting, and he's going to do the right things just because who he is as a man, right? He's going to do the right things and come back a better version of himself. And luckily, I've been lucky enough that I haven't lost yet, right? And in the cage, I lose at practice every day. Um, and I've lost in grappling matches at Worlds and stuff, but I think just moving forward, right? I'm not attached to these results. I'm attached to becoming the best mixed martial artist possible, and I'm obsessed with it. I want to get back in there. I want to fight. I want to fight good guys, and I want to get to the highest level of this sport. I'm probably going to take a loss on the way there. If I do, path doesn't change, nothing changes. Game plan's still the same. Um, Make it to the top of the UFC, and that's my goal. Make it to the top, not just be like a guy that makes it to the UFC. I want to make it to the top. That is my goal, and I'm gonna do anything it takes to get there.
And that mindset, that dedication goes a long way. And also just the idea, people, please be encouraged that resiliency matters. I always like to call it internal locus of control, what you can control, what you can affect after a win or after a loss. It's what you do with it that matters. Some people, unfortunately, after a win, they reduce training. They don't work as hard, kind of that arrogance or whatever you'd call it, where the work ethic slides because I've seen this in, when I used to be an MMA coach, that sometimes when somebody looks great on Saturday, they're not around for a while because they kind of feel good. They don't feel like they have to push. So your
Yeah,
humility in winning is important, continuing to train hard. And for somebody like the champ, Luke Martin, who's coming off a loss, the willingness to continue to develop, knowing that there are more victories out there. So I can't wait to have you on in the future. And thanks so much for taking time. It was an incredible finish and performance. It might not have been, like you said, it might not have been that highlight reel knockout, but to me, a finish against an opponent with that number of wins, you're likely, as you said, you already have your mind picked out on some opponents. I can't wait to see what 2025 brings for you to kind of see what plays out in the next year. But I really appreciate you coming on. Who do you want to thank as people that played a part of your 2025 or your 2024 going into 2025?
uh, honestly, um, everybody, the Stout, all that stuff. But I want to give a huge shout out to my roommate Josh Ramirez, who is making his pro debut in Morgantown this weekend.
Nice.
Last minute fight, and it's a huge deal. It was super hard to get him a fight, and this dude is crazy talented. And I'm super excited to watch him compete and just like be a part of his journey, a small part where I can help him wherever it comes, and we have goals, and helping each other get there together. 2025 for Stout is going to be a huge year. We look forward to, we got some transfers in. We got people in the UFC, and UNESI. We got Farman. We got Josh Ramirez. I think Luke Martin will probably go pro 2025. Brittany Bickhart's going to be coming back in 2025.
Huge.
And we got a ton of people. Anthony Hogue back, pros, right? We're at the level where we have all professional fighters. You can go and look at the record of Stout this year. I believe it's very close to 30-8. So we're doing all the right things while upping the competition. And now, that was like our sophomore season, right? We're coming into junior year. Goals to get to the top level, goals to fight these top guys. Goal for me is to get into the UFC. I think at the end of 2025 is I'll have a serious shot of getting to the UFC. I believe I'll be there, and me and my teammates are gonna work together, and we're all just gonna sit there and listen to our coaches. And I'm very, very excited for next year.
That is incredible. What a way to wrap up our interview. Thanks for not only talking about your fight, but also looking forward to 2025. I know in just a little bit of time, 247 Fighting Championships will be having, after their next card, will be having the year end of review awards. We've talked about it on this show, how they've only done it 2 years, and 2 times your coaches have been coaches of the year, and 2 times your gym has been gym of the year, Stout, Pittsburgh, and Mike and Will. So really showing kind of that pedigree. Can't wait to see what happens in the end of the year voting, because I know that's a big deal for a lot of people. You certainly have a potential knockout of the year candidate with the jumping knee, I would say, against Jake Zach. So really cool to see kind of what happens.
That's Drizzy's award. Drizzy definitely won that with the straight left, knocked everybody's lights out.
That's right. That's right. Well, there you go. See, you're even calling who should win the knockout.
Yeah, who should win the knockout? And I might be up for Canada Pro Fighter of the Year, but I'm gonna tell you right now, Shaka Worthy.
Yeah.
Dude went 4-0 this year. I don't think anybody put up those stats. And it's super. He did it across 2 sports. So I'm really excited. I hope and he's still doing it. You know what I mean? He's been doing it for a while and he's still out here. And I think he won Pittsburgh's Fighter of the Year.
Well, that is awesome. We'll wait to see kind of what happens with 247's awards at the end of the year. It's got me excited about that. Thanks so much for coming on. You've been listening to Luke Basin for MMA Fancast with Steel City Lucas Seibert. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you, bro.